各位观众朋友，大家好，我是严克映，非常谢谢大家来收看我们音乐世界的节目。我们今天继续要访问 Dr. Goldenberg。那我们今天呢，就是要想请教一下，他关于他在整个音乐的学习，他拿到怎么样的 degree， 然后在哪些学校教过，所以我们就是最主要希望他能够稍微自我介绍一下。So Dr. Goldenberg, would you please just introduce yourself to audience, and we would like to know like what kind of degrees you received, and like where did you teach before, and how long you taught piano? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. First, I'll introduce myself by showing you my name in Chinese, which my Chinese students gave me. Jinshan, that's correct. And the reason for that, that I got that name is because my family name is Goldenberg, and Golden is here, and Berg means mountain. So that's why Jinshan. So that's my name. Now, I'm going to tell you and my students, by the way, many of them just call me by that name. Or when you send me an email, you can say Dr. Chinchan, some people say, or Professor Chinchan, or whatever you want to do is fine with me. But I have a funny story to tell you about this that'll make you laugh or smile at least. When I've been to China 4 times now, and I may be about to go for a 5th time to perform and to teach a little bit. And the first time I went to China, I went to Shanghai, where I've been many times, and I was returning home, and I went to Pudong Airport, and I was waiting for my plane. It was supposed to fly from Shanghai to San Francisco. And so I went to the gate where the airplane was, and I sat down, and I looked up at when the plane would leave, and I saw my name.
Really?
This. Jinshan. It was in big letters. And I thought, I must be famous in China. They put my name way up there on the board to announce that I was leaving or something like that. So I saw that, and I didn't really understand it.
San Francisco?
Exactly! The plane left. I got back to my home here in DeKalb at the university, and I told my students that I saw my name at the airport. And it turned out that's the name for San Francisco. And I didn't understand that. It was a joke.
Name. Very good name.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's my Chinese name that my students gave me. And of course, all the students from Korea and from Japan, they use the same characters. So they all know my name in their language. Kumsan and Kaneyama in Japanese.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they all use the same thing, so it works. Anyway, I want to tell you a little bit about my background just to introduce myself. I went to school first undergraduate at Oberlin College. I grew up, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and Oberlin is nearby, and it has a very good school of music at Oberlin. And it also had very good liberal arts degree. So I majored 2 majors. I majored in music and in mathematics, both. And I took all sciences because I thought maybe I was going to go on in science, as my father had done, or medical school. And then I applied to medical school and I applied to music school. And I got accepted at both, and I decided I loved music and I wanted to go on in music. So we may talk about that, why I made that choice a little bit later. But anyway, that was Oberlin. I went on to graduate school at the Juilliard School in New York, and I had a fellowship there, and I did some teaching there also for that fellowship. And I studied with Martin Cannon and Rosina Levine, who were very famous teachers there. They were the teachers of Van Cliburn, for example, and a lot of other well-known pianists. And then I went for that was my master's degree. For a doctorate, I went on to Indiana University. I studied with Menachem Pressler, who was a pianist with the Beaux-Arts Trio, a piano trio, piano, violin, cello. And I became his personal assistant at Indiana University. I taught his students when he was touring in places like China. So I taught his students there, so I was his personal assistant. I had well, that was my title there. I wasn't a graduate assistant, I was his personal assistant. And I also studied with some other wonderful teachers I'll mention, just a couple. One was named Joseph Gingold, who was an absolutely wonderful violin teacher. He was at Indiana University. He was previously the concertmaster of the Cleveland Orchestra. He was a great teacher, and also Ivan Galamian at Juilliard, another great famous teacher. And Felix Galimir also, who had a quartet. He also taught at Juilliard, wonderful chamber music teacher. So I've studied with a lot of fine teachers. I'll tell you a little more about my background. I performed in about 30 countries and taught in about 30 countries all over the world. In Asia, I've been to China many times, as I said, the most in China, I would say. And I've been also to perform and teach in Japan, where I'm going again in the spring. I've been to Korea to perform and teach, and to Taiwan to perform and teach as well. So I've been many places in Asia. I've also been throughout Europe, almost every country in Europe, and Northern Europe, Scandinavia, Southern Europe, France, England, Germany, Austria, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, at the Liszt Academy, been to Italy, Spain, every country almost. Also Australia and New Zealand were very nice and interesting countries to visit. Canada, many times. So I've been to many places and taught in many places. I've had an interesting life. I've enjoyed it. I've performed in a lot of different places. The Grand Teton Festival in the United States, which is in the mountains in the western U.S. I've been to Tanglewood performing. I had a fellowship to Tanglewood when I was younger. Idlewild, California, which is in the mountains outside Los Angeles. I performed for the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C. in the United States in their museums. Steinway series was the name of that series. Performed at the Shanghai Concert Hall in China, in Paris, many places. So, and also with some excellent musicians. I'll go on a little bit. I performed with the Vermeer Quartet a number of times, which is a famous string quartet, with the flute player Dorio Dwyer from the Boston Symphony, with the clarinetist from the Berlin Philharmonic, the name is Karl Leister, well-known violinists, and so on. Let me see what else we want to say. Oh, I've played over 1,000 concerts, believe it or not. Wow. So I've performed a great deal. I usually do about 30 in a year now. 30 to 40 is what it comes to.
Yeah, actually, I got one question. I just wonder, do you have agent to arrange all this, or basically just because you teach at school, so you got some connections?
I arrange things myself. I do not have an agent. And I also have a sister who is a violinist, and she performs in the Kansas City Symphony.
Okay.
And together, we often perform concerts in the Kansas City area and around the world. She is also, one time she came with me to China and we performed, and to Japan as well. And so together we have many contacts in the music world and we're able to arrange our own concerts.
Yeah, so I want to just explain to them right now.
Sure.
所以 Dr. Goldenberg 他去过了，他的本身的学历是 go through 就是非常的classical 的一个 training， 非常正统的一个 training。他在最有名的茱莉亚学校，还有在Stony Brook， 也是非常有名的，就是 Music Conservatory 这样子的学校，受过非常专业的 training。他的老师也都是非常有名的老师。那最后是在 Indiana Bloomington University of Indiana 得到了他的 Doctorate， 就是 DMA degree。那所以说他这一路走来，我是觉得真的是非常的不容易。那另外刚才他说了，他在很多地方都就说 perform 过，然后呢，他每一年大概有30场现在。 无论是欧洲，无论是亚洲，他都去了很多的国家，很多的地方。所以我在想呢，像他，我刚才请教了他一个问题，就是说他是不是有经纪人？他说没有，不过因为他的姐姐在Cleveland 的 Symphony play violin， 所以说他们彼此有一些合作，也有一些就是说 connection。所以我现在呢，最主要呢，除了他这样子的一个 training， 还有他这样子的一个 experience， 我还有我自己觉得更有兴趣要问他的几个问题，因为就是关于他的生活，就说这样子的一个 pianist， 他大概每天是怎么样的一个规律，包括他以前做学生的时候，还有现在就说在大学教书，他是大概还是继续保持每天很长时间的一个练习呢？还是他大概是怎么样的一个作息？我想请教一下他。另外，我也想就他为什么要走音乐这一条路来请教他。So Dr. Goldenberg, I just translate it, and also I told them I want to ask you. First of all, I would like to know, like when you were a student, how do you practice? Because like Lang, he said he practiced when he was young, probably 8 hours a day. And then now, sometimes 12 hours. But last repertoire, because he knew already, so probably he doesn't really have that much time because he needs to travel. But I just wonder, like, how much time when you were young, and then when you were a student at Julia, and now, do you know how much time you need to spend on practicing?
Okay, well, there's no one answer to that question. It depends. It depends. I can tell you how much I spend,
yeah.
But it's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. Some pianists, for example, there was a famous pianist by the name of Rudolf Serkin, mm-hmm. who you can hear many recordings of, and he insisted on practicing long hours, at least 6, probably 8 hours a day.
Wow.
So that was Rudolf Serkin. There are other pianists, for example, I believe Archer Rubinstein, another famous pianist, both of them great, mm-hmm. who didn't like to practice. And he didn't need to practice either.
Everything's there already.
Well, it depends on, each person is different, is an individual. So people practice differing amounts, and when you're young, I certainly think you need to practice a great deal. And I did. I certainly did practice 6 to 8 hours a day when I was at places like Juilliard, when I was in school as a graduate student.
But
when I was very young, I did not practice that much. You have to remember though, that I did not think when I was 8 years old. I began piano at age 6. And I certainly wasn't planning to become a professional pianist or a piano teacher at that age. And so at that age, I practiced about an hour a day, I believe is what my parents wanted me to practice. I wasn't trying to become the greatest pianist in the world at that time. As I got on toward high school, junior high school, say at age 13 to 18, when I was living with my parents, I used to practice, I would say, 3 hours a day, usually, after I got home from public school. So then I did more. When I got to Oberlin at undergraduate, I was also majoring in mathematics. So I had a lot to do. I was taking all kinds of science courses as well as music courses. And I did practice a lot, but it was not 8 hours a day at that point. I would say, depending on whether a concert was coming up, it was always 4 hours a day, I would say. And if a concert was coming, it would be about 6. And I would drop the other things I was doing at that time. So that was Oberlin. Afterwards, Juilliard, all the time practicing at graduate school level. Just that was basically what I did and what I wanted to do, and it was what I loved. I decided that's what I was doing. And I loved to do it. For me, practicing is not a job. I really love to play. And that's how it should be for you. It shouldn't be a job. If making music is a job for you, if you don't just love it, you shouldn't become a musician. because you won't get rich become a musician. You should do something else. But I love music, and I really enjoy it. It's true, there are some things you have to do that are not so enjoyable, maybe practicing a piece technically that's difficult. But still, I enjoy even that, really. So I like sitting at the piano and practicing. I can't think of doing something else. I really love it.
我想呢，从他的这个过程，学习的过程，我们知道，Dr. Goldenberg 他一定是非常非常的热爱音乐，有 passion， 有 love， 不然的话，我想要这样长时间的练习，对一般人来讲都是非常辛苦的。但是就如他所说，即使那样子的辛苦，他也是觉得很 enjoy。所以我们待会要请教他，他为什么要选择音乐？然后我也要想请教他，他平常是怎么一个练习方法？我们有一位他的assistant， 我们想要也让他说明一下，他是怎么样的一个 experience with Dr. Goldenberg， 在 Dr. Goldenberg 练习的时候，非常谢谢大家。